In this film, I'd like to invite you to meet Jesus. I find in the work and ministry I do in spiritual direction and on retreats that it's really quite common that people haven't actually got to know Jesus or God very well. That God seems very distant or far away. That often someone hasn't met Jesus as a friend, as a companion, as someone who loves them and is with them. I think also a very common experience is that people think they're not very good at praying, as if there's some exam in it, as if they're going to be tested, as if there is a right way or a wrong way. Whilst my experience of prayer is it's really a conversation, a way of listening and hearing. And I found this meditation, which again I'm indebted to Anthony de Mello, an Indian Jesuit, for a very useful way of meeting Jesus, getting to know him, making him our friend. So as usual, you might like to light a candle to remind you of God's presence, and you might begin to still yourself and become aware of God's presence with you as I read you this meditation. This exercise was developed by Anthony de Mello as a result of hearing the story of a priest who went to visit a patient in his home. He noticed an empty chair at the patient's bedside and asked what it was doing there. The patient said, "I had placed Jesus on that chair and was talking to him before you arrived. For years I found it extremely difficult to pray until a friend explained to me that prayer was a matter of talking to Jesus. He told me to place an empty chair nearby, to imagine Jesus sitting on that chair, and to speak with him and listen to what he says to me in reply. I've had no difficulty praying ever since." Some days later, so the story goes, the daughter of the patient came to the rectory to inform the priest that her father had died. She said, "I left him alone for a couple of hours. He seemed so peaceful. When I got back to the room, I found him dead. I noticed a strange thing though. His head was resting not on the bed, but on a chair that was beside his bed." So my invitation is that you try this exercise right now, even though at first it might seem infantile or strange to you. I invite you in your imagination to see Jesus sitting close to you. In doing this, you're putting your imagination at the service of your faith. Jesus isn't here in the way you are imagining him, but he certainly is here, and your imagination helps to make you aware of this. Now speak to Jesus. If no one is around, speak out in a soft voice. Listen to what Jesus says to you in reply, or what you imagine him to say. If you do not know what exactly to say to Jesus, narrate to him all the events of the past day and give him your comment on each of them. That is the difference between thinking and praying. When we think, we generally talk to ourselves. When we pray, we talk to God. Do not bother to imagine the details of his face and clothing. This might only prove distracting. St. Teresa of Avila, who frequently prayed like this, says she could never imagine the face of Jesus. She only sensed his nearness, as you sense the nearness of someone whom you cannot see in a dark room, but whose presence there is clear to you. This method of praying is one of the quickest means of experiencing the presence of Christ that I know of. Imagine that Jesus is by your side all through the day. Speak with him frequently in the midst of your occupations. Sometimes all you'll be able to do is glance at him, communicate with him without words. Saint Teresa, who is a great advocate of this form of prayer, promises that it will not be long before the person who prays in this way will experience intense union with the Lord. People sometimes ask me how they can meet the risen Lord in their lives. I know of no better way to suggest to them than this one. As many of us spend more time on our own, this exercise might help to remind us that we're not alone, that Jesus is constantly with us as our friend. The Jesuit William Barry says that God yearns to be intimate with us, to be close to us, and that intimacy doesn't just arrive or appear, it happens through sharing. This kind of exercise allows us to share the most mundane, ordinary things with the one who loves us, and through that we can find intimacy and feel close to Christ. May God give us grace to be close to him as he longs to be close to us. Amen.